Welcome to Wine Talks with Paul Kalemkiarian. You can find us on Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and of course iTunes. Wine Talks is where we peel back one label, one bottle, one cork at a time, the wine business, and always sponsored by the original Wine of the Month Club, where we support the new Pure Wine Club, bringing to you organic and biodynamic wines. But today we have a very, very special guest, and it's fascinating wines. First time I've tasted the wines, having changed distributors in America. So this is Damien Landouar. See what happens, what I do? This is what I do.
I know my name is not easy.
No, but it's not hard. Damien Landouar.
Landouar.
You know, you would never know that I took a French lesson this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, okay? So he's from Chateau Gaby, Chateau Moya, and Chateau Dupart. And all the wines were excellent, and you can see them here in the video here. But we had a fascinating conversation about his history and the history of the wineries. And so we're going to dig into it now. So one of the first questions, we talked about this a little bit before. When you came into the wine business, which you've now said since 1997, you've been making wine at Chateau Gaby, right? But before that, as a young Damien, what were you doing? Were you kicking the soccer ball around, or were you wanted to be a winemaker, or what did you want to do?
First, thank you very much to seeing me, Paul. No, before making wine since 1997, I was at school, and I was looking after agriculture because I was passionate, and I am passionate about nature and agriculture. Mm-hmm. And I studied agriculture, but more for irrigation, and it was more water as wine at that time.
Wait a minute, that's a very biblical thing you just said, water to wine. But I have tenants here in my old building, and they are water engineers. So, but and I want to peel that back. I want to dig into that a little bit. What does that mean that you were studying water? Were you studying the distribution of water, or were you studying what water's value is to or agriculture? What part is it?
No, it was more general things. Make study for irrigation on fields, to be sure that we give the good amount of water for each culture, and after it was also to go to the like garden irrigation, things like that.
I find it interesting that you studied water when you landed in an industry where you're not allowed to use any water.
Yes, definitely. But it's minimum 75% of water on the wine. So
yeah, so that's right.
At the end.
Oh, that's true. That's actually a good point. I want to talk about it later because the amount of let's say flavoring agents, which would be the extraction from the grapes, mm-hmm. is only 5 or 7% or 20%, right? Yeah, and the rest is water. Yeah, that's exactly, pretty interesting. Yeah. Okay, so you were. And it's not unusual, and we've had this discussion amongst other winemakers that you don't start out in the industry, but you acquire some passion for it. If you're passionate about agriculture and water, which is I think pretty close to getting into the wine business. Some people were attorneys and some were doctors, but all of a sudden you decided this wine thing would be a good idea. How did that come about?
I started drinking wine at the age of 18 years old, so very late.
Yeah, late for a French person.
Very late. Yeah.
Wow.
And I started to something happened on me. I don't know exactly what, but and I have amazing professor who gave me the passion of the wine, and I learned from an old winemaker in Pomerol called Jean-Pierre Gasteuil in Chateau Gaby.
Wow.
And he gave me all the passion of how to make wine and how to look after the vineyards, and yes, my passion started and more, and now it's definitely my way of life. Wine is definitely my first passion. So
how if you came out of school and you ended up in Pomerol, which is quite a celebrated district of Bordeaux, how did you just show up and say I'd like to work for you, or?
No, it was more relationship. I started working at Gaby in 1997, and I started learning how to make wine in 1998 with Jean-Pierre Gasteuil, because the previous owner of Gaby have a good relationship with that guy, and he asked him to look after me and teach me how to make wine and have the good tools for making something special in terms of wine.
So that's fascinating because so basically from a cellar rat, let's call it, I don't know what they call it in French, the idea of just starting in the industry, just going to the vineyard and deciding you probably clean the tanks originally and wash down the vineyard.
Yeah. My first work was to it was in December. Yes. So my first work was to pull out the branches from the wire after people pruning. So and after starting work.
But you learn about the vine that way, don't you?
Yeah, sure. That's why I definitely enjoy my job, because I start at the basement of the work, so I know exactly how to do everything.
Yes. Yeah. So you're doing that, then you get sent over to Pomerol to learn how to make wine. And the reason I'm saying this is, there's the other path, right? There's the path where you l'autre façon, right? There's another way to do this. You go to school, you learn enology, and these wines are gorgeous wines. All of them were very good, and
thank you.
It showed the terroir and the district, specifically. It's so different between the three different brands, but you learn it by pure passion and pure study, and the opportunity to get your hands dirty. I had a winemaker in here 2 days ago, and his passion came because he was a bread baker, and the fermentation sciences, which he said were way more complicated with bread, but it fascinated him. So here you are working in the vineyards, you're washing the tanks, and you think, gee, this is really cool. I really like this.
Yeah, sure. No, and it's it became a passion, so it's difficult to explain exactly how to everything's coming, but the main thing is probably because you work with something alive, and
yes, it is alive.
And soon as you put it on the bottle, it's alive too.
It's alive.
You see the difference. And after, the big thing is you share with people, and I like that social part of the wine. It's making people happy, and that's very nice.
That's what does make people happy, that's for sure. Until you have too much, they're not so happy.
Yes, well, too happy.
You were talking about the social part, and I was going to ask you this downstairs, and I didn't ask. You're in two different districts here. You're in Canon-Fronsac, and you're also in Entre-deux-Mers.
Yes, and Castillon and Saint-Emilion.
Okay. Are there winemaking consortiums where you get together and you have meetings and you talk about what's happening, social groups around the districts for where you're working, and you have a chance to discuss your issues with other people in the industry?
Yeah, that's not official group.
Yes.
It's more group of friends who are sharing experiences and
yes.
And sharing mainly during the season how is the vines, and what we have to do to maintain properly the vines in good condition. So it's more like working group. It's more something very friendly. So good friends.
Sure, it's good friends.
Who share techniques and things like that.
I think that this industry is much like that, where there's a lot of camaraderie. People get together, they share experiences, and I'm supposing with climate change, and I'm talking to Burgundy makers, they're really struggling with, how they're going to handle the climate change. I don't know if Bordeaux is suffering as much or is feeling it as much, but certainly in Burgundy they're having a tough time with it.
Since 2005, we saw the evolution of the climate, but at the same time we do a lot of things on the vineyards to improve the quality and to make the wine more
vibrant,
more vibrant, more fresh. So there's a lot of techniques who improve the alcohol on the wine, who concentrate the wine. So at the end, there's a climate changement. That's it. We saw it on the alcohol contents.
Yes.
Since 2005, it's moving very fast, and probably the seasons are changing a little bit. So for me, in terms of climate changement, it's more a season décalage.
Yes.
It's moving.
Right.
So we saw that spring are going no more to June and start of July instead of staying to end of April, middle of May, and summer is going to middle of October, as before it was stop end of August.
So it's starting. Wow. So it's shifting a few weeks.
Yeah.
To when you pick.
Yeah, it's my observation. I don't know.
I think that's normal. I think everybody's having the same issue, but does that mean bud break is earlier? Everything's moved forward a little bit or back a little bit.
Yes, that's the problem. So if you since few years we are struggling with frost in Bordeaux.
Right.
Not because it's moving a lot, but the budding season is at 1-2 weeks the same date.
Yep.
The same time, sorry, but the frost happening to now to middle of April, end of April, and sometimes start of May. So it's changing a lot, yeah.
Let's see. We were there. We were in Pauillac, May 2018, and I think around the 20th we left to go to Monaco.
Okay.
For the Grand Prix. Très bien. And
great.
There was a hailstorm that went through Bordeaux right behind us.
Yep.
And when we were in Monaco watching TV, we see these vineyards were devastated, almost like a straight line right through them.
Yeah, it's like a big corridor.
Yeah.
And
was that Entre-deux-Mers? I think it was Entre-deux-Mers.
Entre-deux-Mers, yes. Auguste is in the middle of the corridor. Yeah. So every time we have hell, we're sure that we get it. So so since 3 years.
So you got that going on. That's great.
Yeah, but you have to compose with that. We talk about natural things before.
Yes.
We plant vines on that is
That's
area.
What it is, right?
Yeah. And storm choose to take place on that corridor, and we know that when a big storm is coming.
Did that particular storm get your vineyards? It was May like 22nd or something of last 2018.
Yeah, but we have hell not every year, but nearly now.
Oh, so, right, yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah. We have hell at August in July this year.
Really? In July?
In July, yeah. July, August, yeah. It's
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's cold enough to freeze the water?
It's normally happen when the temperature is very hot.
Yes.
And a storm coming from the ocean with a cold temperature and making a big
So I see we're looking at the back of the labels here. We talked about this. It's made with organically grown grapes. Are all the properties organic?
All the property are managing organically. Certified. Auguste is certified organic. Moya is certified organic. Gaby is certified organic. And Du Parc will be certified organic in 2021.
So certified.
Certified, sorry.
Well, and this is a point I wanted to bring up. I see a lot of wines that are farmed organic. We practice organic techniques because we want to practice organic techniques.
Yeah.
But we don't want to spend thousands of dollars to get certified.
Yeah.
And so one of the arguments that was made was like, and I agree with this to a certain extent, if you're truly passionate about what you're doing and you truly want to present a product that's organic and you truly want the benefits of organic farming, which produce these fresher wines and sometimes other character that you wouldn't get conventionally, you just do it. And the certification is just proof that you do it.
The certification is 2 times per year. Certification, it's EcoCert for us.
Yes.
So 2 times per year they came and they look after your bills, what you buy and if you are with the right product, and looking after your books on the cellar, your books on the vineyards, looking after your spraying, if you do the good amount of spraying, if you are not too much, and definitely looking after your stock. So physically they come
and look at
the building grapes. And looking after the product and be sure that
twice a year.
Twice a year. So it's not like a dictator.
No, but hope they don't come at harvest.
But they look after it. They look after it. Yeah.
So that's expensive. Well, let's just talk about that for a second. It's expensive because you have to have the staff and show the books and take the time and manage the person that comes in, and do you pay a fee to the certification?
Yeah, the certification, it's around €400 per year.
Oh, okay, so that's not too bad.
It's not too bad, and but working organically costs you more money because you need more people to look after the vineyard.
Yeah, right.
So that's definitely what people are complaining about it now. To moving to organic, need to spend more money, but at the end, you come back to a real farming, because you are on your vineyard, you observe, you look after the weather. So for me, it's more in terms of intellectual. It's really more passionate.
Very more passionate. So so you think that the direction of all wine, going to be organic eventually, as just a product.
You know, I started in 2000.
Let's say Bordeaux.
Yes. I started in 2006 at Gaby, doing it organic farming.
So it's been 13 years.
And 2006, 13 years. It's not long, but in 2006, people were thinking that it was utopic to work like that, and it was not a good way to farming for the crop, for everything. I say, okay, probably, but I'm sure it is the future. And now, in 2019, I'm sure it is the future, and I'm sure, and it's not the future. It's on our back, so we need to think something else now.
Something forward.
And I'm happy because we are ready. So that's my always concern about work. It's to be ready, not before everybody, but to be ready to thinking of something else. What's the next? So, yeah.
Well, I think that's. I just took a test on wine to get a certification, and the question that I answered was an hour and a half. I had an hour and a half to answer the question, and there were two of them were more related to wine production, but one of them was about packaging, and I know a lot about wine packaging. I've been around it since I was stocking the shelves of my dad's store in 1975. And I thought, talking about the cork, which Dom Perignon invented the cork, 350 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And it's taken till recently, let's say 20 years ago, that we started changing the way we package wine with screw caps and foam corks and the other things. So it's a very slow process to change the wine business because it's such a traditional business.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I don't see, for instance, in Bordeaux ever not taking a cork out of the bottle. It's just part of the
culture and tradition.
The culture.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that leads me to this part of the conversation we had downstairs. Wine is a beverage like no other, and it makes you feel something. And maybe my auditeurs are tired of hearing this, but it makes you feel something different than beer. It makes you feel something different than gin or vodka or bourbon, and it makes you want to remove yourself from the daily stuff, right?
Yeah.
It makes you have distance, and I believe it's because it's a direct connection to the soil.
And that probably why I'm passionate about wine, because it's emotion. So
it is.
As soon as you open a bottle of wine, you taste the wine, and it's giving you an emotion. So that's, for me, that's the only product to make me like that when I'm.
So how do we tell the consumer? And this is going back to what I said earlier about these €1 wines in America, because they're really bad, and I taste them all the time. If you saw you saw my tasting room. That's only a couple of weeks worth of samples that have come in here, right? They just flow in here. Most of it's junk. And so you can't have that ethereal experience with a €1 wine. You can't, because the production value of it's so bad that it's just bad. And I'm not saying American wines. One of the wines I just tasted was Beaujolais. I mean, beautiful. You hope that it's 2016 Beaujolais was going to be a gorgeous expression of Beaujolais, and it's bad. And so if you and I open that, we're going to go, this is no good. That's not the experience we want people to have.
Yeah.
So how do we? Is it just getting out on the street, taking your Chateau Gaby, taking the Chateau du Parc, and tasting people and having these conversations? Is that what we have to do?
I think yes. It's more like education. I don't want to be pretentious with that word education.
Yeah, no.
But I think for us, for our wine, educate people to meet them, to have a tasting with them, and explaining all the process of making wine, all the passion of all the team who are working with me for making amazing wine like that. It's a hard work every day.
It's hard work.
And I'm very happy when we open the bottle and people say, "Wow, it's very good. We like it."
That's it.
Yeah, that's my recompense. Yeah.
Which is, I think that's perfect. That you want people to like it originally, right? And there's some people that's all they're going to say. I like it, and that's good enough. I'm happy to have that experience. Others are going to want to understand it more, like you're talking about. Do you have a tasting room for the public?
Yes, at Chateau Gaby.
Okay. Chateau Moya? No.
No, Chateau Gaby is a place where there's a big chateau and a nice place. So we built a tasting room in 2011, and people come to Gaby and have a proper visit, explanation, and after the tasting of all the range of wine.
Do you have a guest quarters? I'm just kidding. Well, I'm going to share something with you because I took some friends. We were in the Burgundy side of France in May, and we went to Chateau de Jacques from Louis Jadot's Beaujolais property, Monsieur Cyrus, and he did something very interesting, which I'd never done. And my two friends are both wine aficionados. They're both experienced wine drinkers and tasters. But he had 2 buckets or 3 buckets of soil, the Côte de Pie, the Fleury, and one of the other districts, and it allowed you to experience the tactile experience of touching the soil. I thought it was a really fascinating idea, and maybe those are kinds of educational materials, rocks. If you're in Grave or something, just rocks that.
And show people that there's a different soil, different typicity with the same grape variety, and giving you different aromas, different structure.
How it affects the wines and tastes, and why you want that. I don't expect everybody to take on the passion that you and I might have, or anybody else that's in this industry that really loves it and wants to learn more. I do have a problem with bloggers and video guys or whatever they're doing, trying to say, I'm going to simplify wine, because it's not simple, and it's complicated. Not that we're trying to be, it's not about be a wine snob. It's just to say, if you want to pursue the knowledge of wine, you can, and there's a lot to learn, and it's fun, and it never ends. It's never going to end for you and me. We're just going to keep doing it until whatever happens, right? But other people just want a good glass of wine.
Sure.
And that's what we want to do too.
That's the complicated things. So make it simple. It's very good, because I'm always telling people who wants to have a glass of wine and say, "Oh, sorry, I'm not able to tell you what happened because I'm not a specialist." I say, yes. You don't need to be a specialist. Right. It's like food. You like or you don't like, right. But after, if you like, I'm able to explain to you how hard it's to make it. So yes. It's like food, exactly the same. Yeah. If you like a good meal, you have to understand that it's probably very good carrots, very good beef, yes. Coming from a special place, and that's the same for the wine. You just have to understand why it's good. That's for me right. The most important things. Right. Yeah.
So speaking of food, then the foods of Bordeaux.
The foods of Bordeaux, the main thing is beef. Entrecôte.
Well, look at entrecôte with the wine. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right?
And with cèpe. Cèpe is mushroom are very famous. And after there's another thing more on the right bank called lamproie. It's like it's a fish. It's not really a fish. It's more like a snake.
Oh, really? A water snake.
A water snake, yeah. who it's not a snake. It's like anguille, but I don't have the translation in English.
Eel, probably.
Yeah,
that's the eel.
So that's the same, but it takes place on the fish and eating fish.
Really?
So it's not a really nice things to look after, but that's a really good lamproie à la bordelaise. So it's making à la bordelaise. It's making with red wine.
Wow, that sounds pretty good.
And vegetables. So
are there regional differences between, for instance, Pauillac, just being down the street from Margaux? I mean, are there those things? Are there plates specifically, or is that too granular? Is it entre deux mers and the left bank and the right bank? You know, those are more regional foods, possibly.
Yeah, in Pauillac you have the lamb of Pauillac, the young lamb. It's very good.
Yeah, it's very good. Yes.
So every place in Bordeaux have different type of food and specialties. Yeah.
I think I'm sure you agree, but there's a reason why these grapes grow in Bordeaux, why they've been there for hundreds of years, and the foods that go with them. And there's a reason why in Tuscany and Sangiovese the foods are Tuscan and and each salami or each type of preserved meat throughout Italy. There's a reason why there's foods of Sardinia, and the grapes that go with it. I believe that they've evolved hand in hand.
I think it's the same as we talked before. It's like a culture.
Yes.
So wine, it's a culture, but wine without food, it's boring.
Yeah.
And food without wine, it's boring. So.
Yes. So we were talking a little bit about your history. You did go to South Africa.
Yes, I work for the previous owner of Gaby, and I work in South Africa during 7 years. Yeah.
So Gaby has property, and the owner has property in South Africa.
No,
as well?
the previous one. So.
Oh, the previous one.
Yeah.
Is that unusual for a chateau in Bordeaux to have 3 owners in 20 years or 25 years?
No, it's not. It's not unusual. Bordeaux is an open market in terms of wine.
Yes.
And since the start of the history, start with English people in terms of market.
Yes.
And after it was Dutch, and after American, and
yes.
and now it's
Chinese.
So Bordeaux was like that since a long time ago. So it's not unusual. So, but we are in Fronsac, and in terms of it's not only vineyards; it's also building assets. So I'm looking after the
everything
building assets too, and the 2 first owner was more investor probably, and Tom Sullivan probably wants to more push the passion of the wine, and wants to make something very different in terms of.
They get to decide. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. That's it. So that's the worst things. Marketing.
We mentioned that Bordeaux's more open, but a place like Burgundy is not. Right? It's very controlled by families and generations and smaller plots and.
Yes. But starting to be a few years ago. A big French billionaire bought a nice property in Burgundy, and it's starting to be the same thing, I think, because it's a good value for put assets on something, but you're definitely right. It's more familial.
It's more controlled.
Yeah.
I think the proprietors of Chateau Smith Eau Lafitte originally tried to buy in Burgundy, and then nobody would sell it to them.
But that's the same in Champagne. If you want to buy a Champagne, you have to know someone in Champagne, or you have to. It's not open like that.
It's controlled ground.
Yeah,
for sure. So I want to go back to South Africa just a little bit, because you said that you grew Syrah, which is Syrah is a rather well grown grape in South Africa, but Pinot Noir is not. And how was that? And this is a complete departure from what you're doing today. So
yes, sure. Pinot Noir are quite famous in South Africa, not on Stellenbosch and French Oak part and Parle, but more on Elgin and Helmen and Harder. So that's the two places where you find a really interesting Pinot Noir, because it's along the Atlantic coast, and the temperature during the day is less than it was in Parle or Stellenbosch.
I don't think I've ever had one, and I've tasted probably 90,000 wines. I don't think everybody's ever brought me a Pinot Noir from South Africa.
So yes, there's different good property who make very good Pinot Noir in South Africa, Hamilton Russell or Butchart Finlayson, Hope Valley, Paul Kluwer. There's different name I'm able to give you.
You're firing right off, so there must be enough. So you made Pinot Noir down there.
Yeah, for 4 years. Yeah.
And how is it compared to its French and American counterparts? I mean, Pinot Noir is such an expressive grape.
Yes.
It really sucks. One of the things that South African wines, which now seem to have figured out, is that smoky creosote, tarry character. Is that a problem with down there?
No, it was depend how you winemaking. If you that's the same for Bordeaux. If you want to do big extraction, sometimes to want something very good, you make mistake.
Yes.
It's sometimes good to
I
stop
do that
before.
quite a bit every day, almost, it seems like.
and I was Pinot Noir teach me a lot in terms of winemaking, because in terms of extraction, you have to know exactly when you have to stop extract, because you kill the fruit.
Yes.
So you have structure, but you have no fruit.
Yeah. You use natural yeast here, or do you use all natural yeast?
Not for the rosé, because it's a technical process, but for all the other wine we use natural yeast.
So one of the things that I think the consumer wants to understand, or doesn't understand, or gets confused with this term sulfites, and how much sulfites are in there. And I have other clubs that like to talk about parts per billion, and it's we only sell wines with 75, less than 75 parts per million, which seems like a lot anyway these days. But and I don't know, maybe you can tell me, in the definition of organic, you're allowed to use some sulfur.
Yeah.
Okay. At any part of the process. Right?
In any part of the process. In terms of legislation, you just have to not go over a certain amount of sulfites, with half of the traditional way of making wine.
Right. Okay.
And on all the wine here, I'm half of the maximum of organic amount of sulfites we have to.
So when you're adding sulfites, there's different times you might do that. For instance, we talked about this downstairs. If that's a moist picking season and there's mildew around, you certainly, in an effort to reduce the sulfites, aren't going to lose your crop, right? You're going to have to do something to...
Sulfur on the vines for spraying for oidium disease are different as the sulfites we are using for protecting the wine.
I see.
So there's
two different things.
There's no link between two. Yeah. So the sulfur we put during the season, it's just to be sure that the fungus oidium not impacting the vines. Yeah. And after the sulfites, it's a big question at time, because people are thinking sulfites it's a chemical things.
Yes.
It's a natural product.
Yeah.
And it's the only way to keep the wine
fresh
at the wine state, because the natural way of grape juice, if you let it go, it's vinegar.
Yeah, it's vinegar.
So we need to interfere in the middle with some things to let it wine for the rest of its life.
Vinegar.
So that's a big question. After the thing is probably it's not only sulfites. Some wine are using a lot of product on it for keeping the color. So that's the term is sulfites. It's a big term for nothing, because at the end it's natural. If you put too much sulfites on the wine, you smell it, and it's not mainly headache. It's more burning.
Right. Yes.
And
people misunderstand that too.
Exactly. No, if you make it naturally, I'm not organic only on the vines. I'm organic also on the cellar.
In the cellar.
So no addition of anything, and yeah, I never had headache. And people who try the wine or taste the wine, mainly if it's a big party, we never have a big hangover or big headache at the
well, because they
day
don't
after.
understand. It's also the histamines, right? It's the skin contact that creates these things that can agitate your sinuses and things. So, but then and there's naturally occurring sulfites in the fermentation process anyway, right? Something comes from that. So, I think it's misunderstood in America, and it's also misunderstood in America because we have to label that contains sulfites when it gets over, I forgot how many parts per million. But if you find a wine that does not have the label contains sulfites, it still has sulfites. It's just not as much.
Yeah, some natural wines don't have sulfites because they're not adding sulfites.
They're not adding.
But the grapes are producing naturally sulfites.
Yes,
not a big amount, not a good amount for protecting wine. So there's another way to protecting wine without sulfites. It's to help the wine to fight with oxygen. So it's more winemaking process as something you had on it. Yeah.
I think it's an important part of the consumerism is to understand this part of the business, because it's winemaking. I had a winemaker here, and they virtually do nothing. I mean, it's very rustic. The vineyards are covered with weeds and things, and they're picked, of course, hand-picked and all that. And they're cloudy, and they're good. You know, they're interesting to taste, but I don't know if they make you feel. You know, like we were talking about, I don't know if they make you feel. They're so rustic, and I think that there's some intervention needs to happen to produce this type of quality that allows you to feel something when you're tasting wine. I think that's a very important part of the business, an important part for the consumers to understand. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation, and I appreciate the time. What else are you doing this trip?
We may
like another week or 2 weeks, or
it's a 2 weeks tour. Start in Boston, and after we go to Washington, to Richmond, to New York.
Wow, you're all over
Nashville,
the place.
Los Angeles, and in 3 days, San Francisco, and after go back to France because I need to harvest for the rosé.
Yeah, right. Sounds like you're busy.
Yes, at that time of the year, yes.
Damien, it's a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much, and cheers, and good luck, and travel safe.
Thank you very much, Paul,
Thank
and
you.
it was a real pleasure to be
Our
here.
pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.